Hey there, good morning, and welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show that's dedicated to progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and other forms of rock music. Sorry, I'm just getting the angle right. I can put it a little lower now because I don't have to sit so close, which is good. So anyways, this is my series, which are my favorite albums of the year 1980. So, this is October the 2nd, so the second album on this list comes from a band, has some prog elements to the band, has a lot of poppiness to it. They're Canadian, which is always a plus. Canadian band, and in their time period when they came out, people thought that they were the Beatles hiding behind another kind of moniker and putting out their own style of music. And there was a big kind of buzz about that. Of course, they were just doing it, and I can't remember the exact reason why they were doing it, but it had nothing to do with the Beatles, and they have nothing to do with the Beatles either. And actually, in this particular album, I don't hear a lot of Beatles here, except for the vocalist, or at least one of the vocalists, has a kind of John Lennon-ish sounding voice, if that's a word. Anyways, I don't have a prop for the album because I don't own it. I have listened to it a few times, and in the day, I remember when it came out in the day, I had actually seen it on display, but again, I was at the record store looking for something else. I never got to it, and that's about as close as I got to buying the album. But I've always kind of been interested in this particular band. So yes, for those of you who watched this week, you know that I'm talking about Klaatu. The album here from 1980 is Endangered Species. Pretty heavy, a heavier album for them, I think. Pretty solid album, I think. Lots of decent to good kind of instrumentation. Their use of different instruments is nice on the album. I like that quite a bit. There's maybe 3 or 4 tracks on the album that I like quite a bit, and then there's a bunch that I'm a little bit indifferent to. They're okay. There's no real bad tracks on this album, though. I listened to the entire album a couple times now, and I don't find anything really bad. There's one track. I wrote down some of the tracks and things about them. There's one track called "Set the World on Fire," which other bands have covered in a kind of very disco-y, poppy way, which maybe detracts from the song altogether on this album, and I can see why they chose this to go that route with it. It's not one of my favorite tracks on the album. Okay, so probably the song I like the most on the album is Paranoia. It's kind of a little more progressive than most of the rest of the album, and really, I think the lyrics are good and progressive in their way. The vocals are good. The instrumentation is good. The song has a nice kind of rhythm section to it, which I like. Then you have another song that I quite like on the album, which is "Howl at the Moon," which comes right after it. And it's a really good track as well for most of the same reasons, but not as much as Paranoia. Then you got Hot Box City. The track itself, I am not particularly crazy about. However, I do like the bass and the strong guitar in it. It's got a little bit heavier of an element in that adds to that song. So those two elements I like quite a bit on that album from that particular song. The rhythm section I like in Dog Star. That makes it one of the songs I like quite a bit. Really good solo. There's a good short solo part that comes partway through the song, which I think really shows that the guy has ability, but they've toned a lot of it down because it's more of a pop album. There's a couple of other songs that have a couple of notable things about them. The Sellout. This is, I don't know if they did this. I'm sorry, I dropped my glasses. I don't know if they did this on purpose or it just worked out that way, but it seems like a purposeful thing. They want it. They're talking about selling out, and then they start playing this kind of a funky rhythm. This is a very funky song. Kind of doesn't quite fit with the rest of the album, although they do have some of that kind of disco-y feel to some of their songs. Not a lot, but there's an element of that in there. And this one has a kind of a funky sound to it. So, and then the last song, All Conditions, kind of a, this is a poppy but kind of also a folky song. Like it's poppy in that it's commercial sounding, but it has, there's an acoustic guitar bit in it, and it kind of gives this, lends itself to a little bit of a folky element. So these guys weren't afraid to experiment with different types of music. They have some pop, some folk, some progressive elements, some funk, even a little bit of a disco element. There's that kind of a Beatles-ish love type sound to it in some aspects of their songs, but not a lot of any of this. Like, they're not, I don't think you could pigeonhole them as being anything except for maybe you might want to say they're poppy. If you're going to say the album is something overall, I would say poppy would be the word. But still not a bad album. The album itself, I don't have a prop for it, but the album cover is, like most Klaatu covers, pretty interesting and really well done. This one is, I think, one of the better ones too. So this is an album that is on my paper list to buy. I keep a list of what I'm looking for, and I added this to it because I decided that this is a band that I have long since passed on for various reasons, mostly financial at the time, and then later because there was other stuff I'd rather be listening to. But it's a good band if you don't like a really heavy progressive element, but you like some progressive element, and you don't like something that's really heavy. This is a band, but they have, this particular album is heavier than their other albums. So if you want some heavy element to it, it's not a bad album to go with. And of course, it's they're Canadian, so that makes me kind of identify with them right away. So there you have it. That's Klaatu, Endangered Species. Let me know what your feelings are on this band. That's my album for day 2 on my favorite albums of 1980. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe, as it's much appreciated. And I will be back tomorrow morning on my regular scheduled time at 8 o'clock for another video on my favorite rock albums of 1980. That will be number 3. So, and we'll stay with that time slot right through to the end of the week, and in all likelihood it'll go right that way now from here on, 8 o'clock every morning, with the this week, which will come out next week, will come out at its time, which is around noon most times on Sunday. So I hope you enjoyed this, and we will see you tomorrow. Prog Monster out.